Hello, and welcome to Canucks Crossing. This week, we will be talking all things preseason, including comments from players during training camp, how our rookies played, followed by an early look at how the veterans are looking to start the season. Canucks camp was in Penticton again this year. There wasn't too much to talk about regarding player performance, but we did get a view on how the players are feeling regarding last year, their mood, and how they feel going into this next season. We got a lot of good sound bites out of their interviews, so I'll go a little bit into that, and then we'll get into what we saw out of the rookies during the preseason games. We'll start with Brock Boeser. Brock Boeser, during his press conference, was talking to reporters just about how much he's loved playing on this Canucks roster, how excited he is to be back with the team. That's always something good to hear. He also talked a lot about how he liked to compete during scrims and training camp, and how the chemistry between his line mates, Pettersson and DeBrusk, has been going. He spent a lot of the offseason focusing on his speed, and I think when we see the comments from the coaching staff and the rest of his teammates, we'll see that it really did affect his gameplay. He has been quite a bit faster in the preseason and during the training camp portion. So yeah, expect to see a lot of good things out of Boeser this year, especially if the rest of his line mates are playing up to the standard that I think we know they all can. As for Pettersson, he talked a lot about not dwelling on the past. Even though he really did not feel he played well this last season, he's expecting a bit of a revenge season this year. He expected a lot more goals out of himself, a lot higher performance, and this year he's seeing if he can get back to former PD. On that note, in preseason games, we got to see a nice vintage PD slap shot again on the power play. He has looked quite a bit stronger. He's still falling over a decent amount, so hopefully we see that kind of get ironed out the more he plays with Boeser and DeBrusk and kind of shakes the rust off. But he also mentioned that the new coaching staff has a renewed focus on offense, which he is looking forward to. I think a lot of people think playing under Tocchet, he wasn't allowed to play the way he liked to, and we really saw like a more boring version of PD under Tocchet than we're used to seeing. Rounding out the top line, we'll talk quickly about DeBrusk media appearance. He mentioned the team is in good spirits, they're healthy, and they're playing with good pace. He says he's enjoying working with Pettersson and Boeser and is looking forward to the opportunity to gain more chemistry with the boys. He thinks they'll have a much better year going into this next year. And he also mentioned that Foote has been a clear communicator and a solid coach, which he was with the team the entire last year as the defensive coordinator, so that's not a huge surprise, but it is encouraging to hear good things out of the team surrounding the new coach. One big question surrounding this Canucks team has been the health of their starting goaltender, Thatcher Demko. He also made a media appearance in Penticton, talking about how he feels he's in great shape. He's a solid competitor, and he thinks he can get back to elite goaltending form and be a difference maker to the team. Demko believes that everybody is committed as a group, and that for him personally, if he plays to the level he can, he's going to get an invite to play for the USA Olympic team. But his main focus is just being that really solid difference maker that we all know he can be for the Vancouver Canucks. He had a couple really solid saves in the one game he played against the Oilers in the preseason, but we really haven't seen much out of Demko yet. I expect we'll get a really good showing opening night against the Flames on Thursday. Last of the media availabilities, but certainly not least, we get to hear from Canucks captain Quinn Hughes, who has nothing but good things to say about a lot of the offseason changes. He's talked a lot about Adam Foote and really praised him as a coach. He talks a lot about how he loves the Canadian hockey market and he loves the passion. He's not surprised that the fans are talking so much about a contract extension for him, but as he points out, he couldn't even sign one if he wanted to, and he's not really focused on it. He's just laser focused on the season in front of him and bringing the best that he can to this Canucks roster. Hughes also had glowing praise for Thatcher Demko, stating he's one of the best goalies in the league when healthy, and had quite a glowing shout out for Pettersson as well, saying they are like-minded players, very competitive and very skilled, and he expects a lot more out of him this year, especially leaving all that drama with Miller in the rearview mirror. Overall in Vancouver, at least from an outsider's perspective, the Canucks as a team really seem to be in high spirits, ready to take on another season and feeling super confident. They all seem to be buying into the group, which is super important, and with extensions out of Garland, Boeser, Pettersson, and Demko all within the last year or two, We can see that all the players really do like to play together, and I think the chemistry can only get better from this point on. So I think we're really going to see something special this year out of the Canucks. Following training camp, we got right into the preseason action, and while these games really don't mean too much for veteran players, they can and do mean a lot for the younger players looking to make a career out of being NHL players. Canucks played well in the preseason, sporting a 4-2 record with one really crazy game against the Flames, but most importantly, standout performances by nearly all players in positions to get a roster spot out of this. After all the cuts from training camp and preseason, we're left with Arshdeep Bains, Braden Coots, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Linus Karlsson, Aatu Räty from the forward groups, and Derek Forbort, Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, and Pierre-Olivier Joseph on defense, hoping to make opening night roster. Starting with the defense, I think this is the easier situation to predict. I think we'll see Forbort and Pettersson make up that last D pairing, with Joseph sitting in the press box at least for game one. That's assuming all players are healthy. Both Forbort and Joseph reportedly could be injured, so one of them might end up on IR. Both Forbort and Pettersson have been really strong defensively, and I expect the coaching staff really wants to let DP get as much NHL ice time as possible to further his development. So I think we will see those two rounding out the bottom pair, especially after Mancini and Tom Willander have both been sent back down to the AHL this week. The forwards is where it really gets tricky. With one defenseman in the press box, Canucks will still need to choose two forwards out of the ones I've listed to at least fit into the allotted roster size that they're allowed to have for opening night. And we'll start with talking about Braden Coots. Braden Coots, 18-year-old player, Alberta boy, but Canadian boy nonetheless, who really surprised a lot of players with his play. Most people thought he was going to be a little too small, maybe wouldn't be able to keep up with the big boys, but he really has earned his spot. 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points in the preseason. He really has looked like he's NHL ready. He has kept up with the big club. All the players on the team have been commenting on just how ready he seems to play. And while I think most Canucks fans would be super excited to see, our 19th overall pick turn into a roster player right away, I think we'll see a 9-game trial out of him, and before he ultimately ends up going back to junior hockey, as he's too young to play in the AHL. I don't think it's quite worth ruining his progression potentially just to have him sit on the roster when we have quite a few options, I think, to fill that last spot, and a lot of guys who are really barking at the opportunity, who I think, just based on how much time they've put into the Canucks system, deserve a bit of a shot as well. But I do think he will make the opening roster. I think he'll get those 9 games, and then I think he'll go back to junior. This should fit pretty good right now, as Höglander is out injured for about a month or so we really have that extra roster spot to play with. Next up, we have Jonathan Lekkerimäki. This is the other choice I think is pretty much a lock to make the Canucks opening night roster. He led the Canucks in goals in the preseason, showing off his impressive release, but even more important, his much better play. Next up, we have Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who led the Canucks in goals in the preseason, showing off not only his impressive release, but also, much more important, his much better play away from the puck, according to his veteran teammates. Lekkerimäki is quickly cementing himself as a main part of this Canucks roster with a great scoring touch, which is really what the Canucks need to get going into this next season, is more goals. With DeBrusk even mentioning he reminded him of David Pastrnak, at least when it comes to his shot release, maybe not the rest of his play. But that's high praise coming from Jake DeBrusk for sure. With those 2 spots taken on the opening night roster, that leaves us with just Bains, Räty, and Karlsson for the 2 remaining cuts, and I think we're going to see for sure Karlsson go back down to the AHL. He just, out of them all, he really just hasn't shown above and beyond that he's ready for the NHL. He has been certainly the weaker of the players making a leap to the NHL, but I don't think that's necessarily to his negative and more to the positive of everybody else he's being compared with. Coots and Lekkerimäki in particular showing off really well, and then just what the Canucks need is somebody with a bit more experience, and I think Räty and Bains both have more experience in the NHL than Karlsson. Between Bains and Räty, I think it's a bit more of a toss-up. Bains is really solid on the wing. He's had call-ups to play on the higher lines with the Canucks, so if we see Coots playing in that center role, I think it's probably more likely we see Bains come in and fill that wing slot that's being sorely missed by Höglander not being in the lineup. So if I'm being honest, I think we will see Bains. up until Braden Coots finishes his 9 games, or if they scratch Coots, because Coots is taking up that third line center spot, ideally. That Ratu really fits well in. Ratu has a really high face-off percentage. He's really strong on the puck. His entrances into the zone are super strong, and his shot has been looking really solid. I think really the only thing is that Coots is playing so well, it'd be a shame not to give him the 9 games. So I think he'll take that spot for the first 9 games, and then it will go to Ratu. Just even like improving Bain's chances here. I think Baines has better speed than Ratu and has already played a decent amount of minutes with the second line and third line centers. So I think he's really going to fit in that spot. But yeah, that's going to be it for this week's video. Next week, we'll finally have some regular season games, which I'm really looking forward to. We'll be talking about the Canucks versus the Flames. So they'll be playing on Thursday, following the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday. I'm expecting a pretty solid game against the Flames. It's our home opener, and they'll be playing the Flames on the second half of a back-to-back with them playing the Oilers the night before in Calgary. So I think we'll get a bit of a beat-up Flames team for our opening night, so hopefully we have a good showing there. The Oilers matchup should also be a good one. It nearly always is with them being division rivals, but I think the Canucks are more than ready for the challenge, and it's good for them to get their feet under them early on in the season. So I think we'll all be excited for that one. But yeah, we'll see you all next week for another episode of Canucks Crossing. Go Canucks, go!